Yeah, those beautiful mountain majesties. America the Beautiful. And we are on the air. Good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. America, and welcome to the Freedom Forum, an online radio program. I'm the host who loves you the most, Jeff Bosshart, and have with me again in our studio today my friend and co-host, Vernon Bohr. Hello, Vernon.
Hello, Jeff.
Hear you loud and clear. I think we're going. This is a talk show program, so to call in today, just dial 831-265-5050. Announce your name and the issue you wish to discuss, comment on, or ask questions about. You can listen on your phone to the program in progress before we get to you. So we have a lot to cover today. We're going to give it a try. I want to talk about the so-called riots going on in Los Angeles and talk a little bit about the big, beautiful bill that's sitting out there getting pot shots taken at it for various reasons. But first, I want to step a bit back to June 6th, last Friday. That was D-Day. We commemorate that. Something happened a long time ago. A few of us were alive at the time. I was, barely. But though I don't remember it, of course, I've seen lots of things in movies and stories written about it, for it. And I have acquired something that was very important that day. We had a letter that was issued by the General Eisenhower, who had the supreme headquarters for the Allied Expeditionary Force, had a copy of that letter given to every one of the folks that was on ships or in the air headed to the war zone. So here it goes. Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force. You are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you, in company with our brave allies and brothers in arms and other fronts. You will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well-trained and well-equipped and battle-hardened. He will fight savagely. Much has happened since the Nazi triumphs of the 1940 and 41 era. The United Nations have inflicted upon the Germans great defeats in open battle, man-to-man. Our air offensive has seriously reduced their strength in the air and their capacity to wage war on the ground. Our home fronts have given us an overwhelming superiority in weapons and munitions of every sort, and placed at our disposal great reserves of trained fighting men. The tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck. And let us all beseech the blessing of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking. Dwight Eisenhower, great general who later became one of our very good presidents. So Vernon, do you have anything you want to add to that or comment upon about the D-Day or the war in general?
Yeah, when you read that thing that struck out was the reserves of fighting men. Wars don't take place without the loss of men, young men's lives especially. And I often wonder if we could pull off D-Day with today's technology. I could just see as the landing craft doors were dropping down, everyone going nuts watching it on television as men were falling in battle, calling, phone lines lit up to their congressmen. We can't do this. They'll never make it. It will never happen. And, Steven Spielberg did a pretty good depiction of that on Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
And like I say, I often wonder if we would prevail or what would happen if such occurred today, because in spite of the so-called wars we've been in over the years, the good news is they've decreased in intensity and lessen in the loss of life.
They have, it's true. On the other hand, technology always has something to say about things. The machine gun came along, and everyone thought, well, this will end war. No one wants to see wars with machine guns.
Yeah.
But they hadn't even counted on the atomic bomb, for goodness sakes, and that looms out there right now. And frankly, I'm not fully prepared to talk about this whole subject today at great length, but I could tell you we are terribly ill-prepared for anything that may come nowadays. For one thing, we can't really depend on our ships to do things. Ships have become almost obsolete. They are good for carrying troops around. We had many of them in World War II and even World War I. And I could give you some numbers on all that. But then there's the technology of AI and the fact that one of our biggest political enemies, China, basically steals most of our secrets. They know everything we do, so and more that they may have developed themselves, and on and on. And look who has a big stock of missiles waiting in Russia, and maybe soon in Iran. They can pretty well send anything any way they can, and we don't have a shield over us like Israel does. You know, the golden shield that we're anticipating, something like what Ronald Reagan had going for us at the end of his term around 1988 or so. So, which helped us end the Cold War as it was at the time with Russia. And we had not even more of a detente. You know, we had some working relationship till Putin came along, and he was a tough guy. He was of the old guard, willing, like many Russian leaders, to sacrifice as many people as it took to get what he wanted.
Yeah. And I think it's easy for us Americans to forget that wars have been around since the beginning of time. And over my lifetime, as I've watched our budgets, and we'll be getting into that in a second, the amount we spend on military spending as a total amount of our budget is significantly decreased, and they get around that and underemphasize it by only pointing out its percentage of the discretionary spending. And it always has struck me as strange that our military spending should be discretionary, given the fact that that's one of the few things that was really provided for in the Constitution in terms of spending money for the protection of the nation.
Right. If you have a government, the first thing you want from it is protection from outside. Well, that didn't work too well in the last 4 years. We had a wave of basically invaders coming. We don't know who they are. We have no idea who they are. They have some estimates of there being literally some millions of young men of soldier age coming from various countries, including China and others that would not necessarily be friendly to us, some from Muslim countries, and so on and so on.
Yeah, I don't think that people realize this. During the Reagan administration, our percentage of military spending spending as a percentage of the total budget was up around 23%. We're down to between 13 and 15% right now.
Yeah, 25, 26 was pretty normal back in the day and necessary.
Yeah, and China plays rough, and we need a strong military, and I think that's underemphasized. People keep saying, "Oh, we need to cut the military. We don't need it. We need to cut military spending." They also, assume that cutting military spending could offset our deficits. But when you get right down to it, right now, the interest on the debt exceeds what we're spending on the military and defense. So, and by the way, if we do get in war, one of the costs of war are wounded and injured that come back.
Yeah, and even the loss of the ones didn't get to come back.
Yeah. So,
we miss some of our manpower.
The good news is, though, they say we have something like 350 million guns in the United States, and we're we can be a pretty unbehaved people. So from a standpoint of a civil war or insurgents coming here, I think that the individual American would rise to the occasion if the Army didn't prevail.
Yeah, if nothing else, protect the homeland. I have been told, and I still believe, that Japan backed off from trying any invasion here because of the fear of how well armed we individually were and are. Have our guns.
We love our guns, Jeff.
Well, they say that guns and freedom kind of go together. It's the reason that we have a Second Amendment to the Constitution to go along with the First. They say one isn't as much good without the other, because theoretically we should be able to hold off a standing army with our own personal arsenal. That'll never work. Never work. The armies are really well armed.
People say that, but when it gets into civil war and you get into peaceful citizens by day and soldiers by night, there's 330 million Americans, of which a lot of them have guns, and we only have about 1.5 million in the Army, of which I think that probably 40% of them are field soldiers, infantry.
Mm-hmm. But they also have airplanes, helicopters, and drones, and all kinds of things that.
Yeah, but you can't cover this massive land. I have no question that the military would have a tremendously difficult time subduing the American population.
I agree. And on the other hand, we may be losing our country by degrees in other ways, which we'll get back to on another program probably next week at the earliest. But since we're talking about the military, it seems like a good way to segue into what's happening in Los Angeles, where the military are a presence or a threat to be a presence. The real military, I'm talking about the Marines stationed a couple of 100 miles away, Camp Pendleton. But on the ground are the National Guard troops, which President Trump had every authority he needed to bring in, since the states weren't doing anything to protect the citizens or to protect federal buildings and so forth. The ideal protectors would have been the Los Angeles Police Department. They know how to handle protesters. They do a good job at it, but they were overwhelmed. Too many people coming out against them, throwing things, Molotov cocktails, pieces of cement, whatever they had. So it took something bigger and stronger to make something happen there. What's your take on it? You've been watching TV and watched all that?
My take on it is, is what's happening down there, are they riots, insurrection, or rebellion?
Well, it could have started with the simpler forms of protest. And of course, we admit and have to admit that we do have freedom to protest peacefully. Peaceful protest, mostly peaceful protest, whatever you want to call it. So I want to think about this dating back about 5 years to a guy named George Floyd. Does that name ring a bell?
Yeah. One of the things that's interesting here is, I don't know if you're aware of it. I wonder how much of this is really, as they say, organic.
How much of what is organic?
The riots that are going on down there. There's an appearance of being spontaneous and organic, but I'm not sure they are. There's a website on the internet called beautifultrouble.org, and it is the whole playbook of left-wing radicals on how to conduct these kinds of things so that they look organic. But they are really, I'll go so far as to say, anti-American. They really would like to see this government overthrown and a change of government.
Yes, and it's becoming riper for that as we tend to lose our lessons of history, and we lose our civic virtue that's taught in our schools. At least it was when you and I were going to school.
Yeah, and I can't remember where it was that I saw it. There was a comment about, the people have a right to peacefully assemble and protest. But there are people that are breaking up sidewalks with sledgehammers for rocks to throw at the police cars. And when you see some of those police cars torched up in a line, this is not a peaceful demonstration. And I hear people complain and make the comment, well, we're all a country of immigrants. Yeah, but there was a point in time the world was open to everybody.
Right, and we were.
Yes,
among others.
and in time, as the population on this planet has grown, the world at large has chosen to remain broken up into countries with borders. And it's just a specious, weak argument as far as I'm concerned. This is the United States of America. People don't have a right to be here illegally. I saw a post the other day or something about there's no such thing as illegal and on and on and on. Yes, there is. It was in the late 1800s we decided to pass immigration laws and control the number of people coming in here for a variety of reasons. And when people come here, and in LA you see it, people running up and down the streets with Mexican flags, is why are you waving the flag of another country in the United States of America? This would not be tolerated in Mexico.
Yeah, that and some other things. We couldn't go down there and demand medical treatment free, education for free, waving our American flags all over the place, and set fire to stuff too.
Yeah, their military and police would open fire. I have no doubt about that if someone were to attack public and government buildings. And yet we have many people excusing this. I'd say it falls in the realm of this is hypocrisy at its best. People that want to call what happened in D.C. on January 6th, 2021 an insurrection and are not willing to call this an insurrection or a rebellion or something of that nature are disingenuous and hypocrites.
Yeah, it's also hard to work back the other way and look at what's going on today and call that an insurrection, but somehow dismiss what was going on January 6th. There were people that were in that mix, intent on doing violence, hurting people and breaking things. On the other hand, there were some peaceful demonstrators who walked in, looked around, and went back out.
Jeff, let's throw another perspective on January 6th too.
All right.
Is it that all the focus was on the break-in, but there were over 10,000 people there, and I've got hours and hours and hours of video. I downloaded it from the internet of people just milling and walking around, not even near the Capitol building where they broke in. So really, if you want to use that label, a mostly peaceful demonstration, or a demonstration that got out of control for a short period of time, relatively short period of time, when, as you brought up George Floyd, the damage that was done and the deaths and people that were killed during those demonstrations far exceed what happened in Washington. And the thing I was thinking about regarding LA is I wonder how many officers have been injured so far in what's gone down there. And I wonder if these people would have the same statement they did about, it's not right to injure police, except in LA, because, ICE shouldn't be doing its job.
Let's walk back through what we're looking at in LA. The last thing was a layer of people in the neighborhoods around Paramount coming out, seeing things on TV and saying, hey, they're doing this to our people and so forth. They added to the number of people out there, not necessarily bad people, just added to the throngs. Some deviated off and blocked Highway 101 for a few hours, but CHP cleared that up. I hate it when people think so much of themselves and little about everyone else that they will stop everything else so that they can make their point. You have a right to speak. You have a right to write your opinions. You don't have a right to stop someone else, because the first law of freedom and liberty is you can do whatever you want so long as it does no harm to someone else.
Yeah.
That's the overriding theme of this program and almost everything else I can think about.
Yeah, civilization is at stake, and John McAfee, who started the virus software years back, we talked about this last week, had a great comment one time in an interview, and he says, the veneer of civilization is very thin.
Right. So we had these people coming out to add it to the throngs and the problems, but not as bad as what it first was. And you back that up a little bit when you had some actually trained and paid for protesters infiltrating to obstruct the ICE from collecting people that were to be taken because they were illegal aliens. I like Mrs. Pelosi's famous quote, well, they weren't breaking any laws. They weren't criminals. They were just illegal aliens.
Yeah.
Well, you pass laws for a reason. You expect people to obey them. And then we'll have another debate about all the DAs across the country that have been paid off by Soros to not enforce the law. So we had people basically stealing stuff, and they could get away with it because it didn't reach a high enough value to constitute a major crime, a felony. It was just, minor theft, Anyway, going back even farther into this secession in Los Angeles, ICE was there doing their duty.
Yes.
They had to start somewhere to collect the people that didn't belong here, and they were at the right place to do it, and then putting them where they had to be. And why was that? Well, because millions came in illegally. And who did that? Not Mr. Trump.
Yes.
Mr. Biden and his crew. So you can go back and get to all the roots of these problems, but we've had this kind of dissension available all the time because of the history of things. And we're going to have a moment here where we'll be able to admit someone here who's wanting to call in, and I don't want to start someone just before the commercial. We'll have the commercial first in a few moments and then get to the person that wants to come in. I don't see a name, but they do want to talk about the Los Angeles insurrection. So there'll be a fine addition to this program. If we get one more thing out of the way, what we are looking at is we talked about the George Floyd situation and the aftermath of the mostly peaceful protests that went on in that summer of 2020 and had an effect on the elections that year. And, for example, the governor of Wisconsin allowed Milwaukee to burn, and the press covering it took pictures of all this violence going on, the flames and all that. Said, well, mostly peaceful protest. So our take on this from the press, we want them to do their job and cover things, but they can get a little bit out of their routes that they should be taking.
They're not. They're not reporters. They're opinionators.
Yeah, I can tell you that according to the law, President Trump had the right, and not just the duty, to get this straightened out. I would say stop at the point you're going to send in troops from Camp Pendleton. If the local police and the National Guard aren't enough, we'll just have to get along without that for a bit. So here we go to the commercial break. We'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Hi, folks. Warren Knox here of Knox Roofing. I thought I'd share a few statistics with you. Do you know how long a frog can hold its breath? 4 minutes. Do you know how many nails the average roof requires? 7,000. What's the percentage of roofing companies that will be out of business after they've installed a roof? 80%. Here at Knox Roofing, we're still going strong, exceeding 15,000 homes now. Give us a call here at Knox Roofing at 461-0634. Thanks, folks.
Attention content producers. You can have access to a complete digital media production facility at Satellite Co-working and Digital Media Studio on Soquel Avenue. Easily rent video and audio equipment, a studio with green screen, editing suite, and audio booth, all at can't say no rates. Schedule a tour to see for yourself at satellitecoworking.com. Mention Santa Cruz Voice for 20% off your first reservation.
You can help build one of America's first full-service local news and talk streaming radio stations, SantaCruzVoice.com. You can help the Voice team build a streaming radio infrastructure of hardware, software, and connectivity by donating your time and or money. Your donations will result in a radio station that everyone will enjoy and that you can truly be proud of. Please go to SantaCruzVoice.com and click support. SantaCruzVoice.com, and thank you.
Cannabis is one of nature's most beneficial plants. Hello, I'm Jenna. Treehouse Dispensary, we use information about cannabis to build community. Listen to Carly.
For those who would like a cannabis flower that stimulates your creativity and makes you feel happy, Treehouse suggests the sativa varietal banjo from the local growers at Coastal Sun.
For answers to your cannabis questions, ask your friends at Treehouse Dispensary, 3651 Soquel Drive in Soquel, or ourtreehouse.io.
And we are back from our commercial break, ready to do another half hour of the Freedom Forum, and beginning this half hour with our guest caller, and I'm going to try to admit that person right now and see what happens.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Who is this?
This is Don and Salinas.
Okay, Don, you've been on before, so we know you, and I didn't see the name on this. I just saw the caller from Salinas. I didn't know. But you are well identified now as a bona fide caller in. You've done this a couple times before. So what do you want to pick up with this discussion we're having about Los Angeles?
Well, I wanted to start off with this. Trump had every right to bring in the National Guard under the Insurrection Act. What's happening down there checks almost every box in the definition of an insurrection. It's violent. It's against the government. It's trying to overturn a policy of the government by force. I mean, you name it, and there it is. It's an insurrection. Yeah. And this stuff of that somehow bringing in the National Guard exacerbated the situation. They were doing this before the National Guard came. That's why they got called in the first place.
Yeah, the police weren't enough.
They were violent, vandalizing, everything you can think of under the sun they were doing. And the police, they didn't have it under control. They still don't have it under control, and it's on purpose. Okay, this is purposefully not controlling the situation. This is kabuki theater.
Are you talking about it's purposeful on the part of the government entities, or is peaceful? It is what it is because of the people that are protesting.
It is what it is because the police are not taking control of the situation.
That's true. They got overwhelmed.
The chief of police of Los Angeles actually said that these people, I'm trying to remember now, I'm drawing a blank, but these people, we're going to let them wear themselves out like they're a bunch of toddlers. And then afterwards, we're going to sift through the ashes and look at video and start arresting people. This is what he said.
Wow.
Which I'm a protester. I'm going to say, well, wow, I'm going to tear ass all over this town. And I'll just wear a mask so nobody can see me and no one's going to stop me.
Yeah, that's the equivalent of
going on.
That's the equivalent of the Los Angeles County District Attorney saying we're not going to prosecute certain minor crimes. And so there's a minor crime spree going on.
Minor? They're throwing concrete at live officers. Yeah. That's not a minor crime.
I was talking about
they're shooting fireworks at the officers. They're lighting fires and trying to burn down buildings. They're looting. I mean, you name it, they're doing it. But these people, these incompetents, are saying, "Oh, we won't prosecute minor crimes." Well, are you going to prosecute any crime? Well, we'll have to wait to see what the video tells us. Yeah,
and they have their mayor, Karen Bass, and our governor, Mr. Newsom, all saying, "Oh, Mr. Trump shouldn't have come in here. We should all be under our control." Well, they weren't under anyone's control. That's why Trump is there.
They're not. The police are ordered to stand there and stare. That's basically all they're doing. They're standing there and staring. They were fighting with each other, these protesters, and the police are standing there and staring. They're not doing anything. I'm not blaming the cops because they have orders to stand there and stare. They're not controlling this.
That's true.
And we need control.
Control has to be established.
Control has to be established. If you're in a fight, you get on top and you stay on top. You don't stand there and say, well, maybe if they only burn 10 cars, they'll get tired and go home. Oh, my God, really? This is what's protecting us? These are the leaders of the community? It's amazing what I'm seeing over there.
I'm wondering
it's kabuki theater, and I'm calling it kabuki theater because it's step for step what they did during the George Floyd situations.
Yeah, that's
And get this, during the so-called insurrection on January 6th, the next day they threw razor wire around the Capitol and aimed machine guns at America. Day one they did that, and those things stayed up there for months.
yes. They did.
Okay? And now, did anyone say, oh, no, posse comitatus, oh, no, this, that? No. No, they were well within their rights to shoot at any American who dared come into the Capitol. I mean, the flagrant hypocrisy and incompetence and stupidity of the people who are supposedly our leaders is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, you got a good vote on that. The Democrats don't want to do anything, and the Republicans can't get organized enough around their beliefs to do anything. So it's kind of hopeless to find hope.
Now, these National Guard are just around the federal buildings.
Yes.
They're just around the federal buildings. They're not wandering through the streets of Los Angeles shooting at poor immigrants and stuff like that, like they'd have you believe. I mean, the lies and the fake news that is coming out from our so-called news outlets, they're exacerbating the situation, acting like the mere presence of a guy in uniform is going to enrage these people to cause even more havoc. Well, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You're the little wimp of the school that the school bully says, give me your lunch money or I'll beat you up. And you go, okay, bully. If I don't, then I'll enrage you and you'll beat me up. So there, I'll do that. This is what's going on. This is what we have happening in our society.
Yes, it is. It does show itself once in a while. The Kabuki Theater opens for all listeners and watchers.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I said earlier, Jeff. This is not
a replay.
John, stop. You're on a roll.
Yeah, well, I better get off, you guys.
No.
I just want to say I'm 100% in support of President Trump, and if it gets really bad, I have no problem with the Marines going in and surrounding the federal buildings to supplement the National Guard.
Just curious, have you been in service that way and maybe subject to call up for war or for insurrections? Never
been in the service, no.
Well,
been in a lot of fights.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Okay.
That's just wondered because I like to talk to people who've actually been there.
I've been in situations, violent situations before. I don't like it. I don't like violence, but I have no problem with violence when that's what it takes to handle the problem. And I say if they have to, let them do it. You can't let the bully run all over you. Right. I better go. Good show, you guys.
Well, you're making it a good show by just showing up and listening. Thank you. Tune in.
Okay, thanks.
Later, Don.
Bye-bye.
Hang with us. Okay, Vernon, we're back to just two of us again.
Yeah, when you say Kabuki Theater, that's back to what I said earlier. This, much of this is not organic in the respect to spontaneous. Clearly, people showing up to crowds might be. But the other thing that I was just toying with is part of me just says, okay, Los Angeles, if you want to be, you want to let this happen, we'll just pull out, destroy your city. And given the fact that you want to flip off the federal government and say you don't want to obey the rules, destroy it, and you're responsible for any funds to mend it.
Yeah, the southeast portion of Los Angeles County, we're talking about Paramount and Lakewood, things around there, didn't suffer as much from the fires that hit L.A. as they did on the west side and farther down up north. So this is a group of people that haven't seen real problems up face to face like many of their Angelino buddies might have done. But be that as it may, it's still wrong to behave in that way of doing things. And there's people out in the neighborhoods that are suffering now. The businesses are getting looted and the homes are being actually victimized too.
Yeah, but I could argue, based on the 10th Amendment, that it's their responsibility. If they're not going to control it, let them deal with the damage And what they've done to their city is not the responsibility of the United States to provide any assistance in cleaning up and rebuilding. Maybe we should have done that for all these places that allowed the Floyd riots to go on. Let the socialist communists that instigate these things be responsible for the damage they did.
Well, who knows how many of these people that are really involved in this so-called protest are people who came in during this past 4 years under the Biden's lack of observation and action.
Yeah.
We don't know yet. Maybe we'll find out some of them. But we have to ask, there's not just one blue state that's having a problem right now, California. New York's having problems. And other blue states, all states governed by Democrats are having problems. Yeah. And especially in terms of crime, South Chicago in Illinois is not a good place to be. Why do these why do we have to have ICE raids? Well, for 5 reasons, really. One, there's illegal voters, alien voters, and people who will vote for them want to keep them there. 2, federal funding is based on the number of people in your region. So the more people that are in there, the more money your region gets, whether it's a county or the state or anything else.
Let me stop you there. Is that including people that aren't citizens? That shouldn't be right.
No, it does include people that aren't citizens. If they're just people in the census, how many people are there? Okay, that determines how many congressmen you get. And it can affect the Electoral College if those folks do vote. I don't know that they are. And
well, wait, I want to interrupt on that because I watched a podcast the other day, this young couple that was on there, and they were making a point that there's a lot of people leaving California. Yes. A lot of Democrats leaving California, middle of the road people. I mean, they're not the far left or what you'd call the far left progressives, and they're going to other states. And what the assertion was is people leave California, you start to diminish its effect in the Electoral College if you lose enough people. Mm-hmm. And as they move to other states like Texas, that's still pretty much red, as they're moving to some of the other red states, Texas, Florida, I can't think, there's 2 main ones that come to mind. They boost the electoral votes in those states.
Arizona,
which in fact, as long as they stay red, starts to offset the power of blue states like California. And if people are leaving New York, same thing, such that in the big picture, at least temporarily, this could really hurt the Democratic vote.
Yeah. If you had as many as 5 of the bigger states all voting for one party, that would be enough to win the election if you go by the Electoral College. And there's other issues too. Some people simply want us to have open borders. They think, well, why should people like us be beneficiaries of such wonderful place to be and so forth when there's all these other places where people are suffering, they're poor, they're oppressed, they're being subjected to tyrannical campaigns.
This gets back to the civics, though, Jeff. Yeah. This gets back to civics. If that's what people want, just like a lot of people would like to see us do away with the Second Amendment. Why do we even need that anymore? And they weren't, they didn't have assault rifles and on and on. Well, when the Founding Fathers put this country together, they didn't, the way I see it, they provided for the Constitution to be adapted to the times based on constitutional amendments. They were no fools. They realized that things would change with times, but that's hard, and that requires work, and people want to do it their way without the required work. You want to do away with change the immigration laws, get your elected officials, your Congress people to do and deal with this, to just throw hissy fits and tantrums is not the way of civilized society. The other way I'd put that is people need to grow up. Just because you reach 18, 25, 35, 45, I don't care what it is, there are aspects to being an adult that transcend your age. And I got it, that a lot of people are upset with Trump. I want to read, this ties in because it ties into me because what we're faced with is a society that's having a hard time getting along. And someone posted this, and I know I have a lot of progressive friends that feel this way, but it's problematic to me, and we need to figure some way to come together as a country. They said, if you voted for him, you brought this on us. Well, it's nebulous, but they show a big picture of Trump, so I'm going to assume that that's what they mean versus any specific policy.
In other words, if Trump hadn't come along because of what Biden did, we wouldn't have this problem, and we wouldn't have any need to correct anything.
Yeah. If you excuse his actions and continue to support him, I can't be your friend. What actions, first of all, what actions are they talking about to be supported? And in an adult world, you try and resolve your differences. I can't be your friend if you can't talk out your differences. The next level, as far as I'm concerned, is when the ultimate breakdown in communication is war.
True.
You know,
Civil
when
war or otherwise.
Yeah. When you can't start talking it out, you've got war. And I know a lot of people are calling Trump fascist, but here's what I propose to you. I've said this before on the show. Trump's approval ratings yesterday were around 47.6. Now,
which is high for him.
High for that exceeds his highest the rating even for one day in his first presidency. Now for me, I'm going to invoke my scientific background here. I'm saying, okay, let's analyze this. You have a guy that the left hated the first time and was in the 38s most of the time, and over the years, he's kept going up, up, up. You've had people complain about an insurrection. The demonstration got wild in January 6th, 2021, and his approval ratings still go up, up, up. You get all the way through, he runs again, and you're out there touting and yelling and screaming. He was convicted of 36 felonies. Well, listen, in the courts, there's such a thing as jury nullification. What I would say is that the election was the American people's nullification of a lawsuits that were set up where they had to bend the law to get them heard in the first place, and the American people are saying, we're just not buying it. Plus, when you go and look at the spread of the demographics, I'm building this, is across every demographic, he got more votes than before. Now, people say, well, yeah, it's under 50%, but he consistently stays high in spite of all these things he's doing that those that hate him are complaining about. So obviously, what that would imply to me in terms of the data, his actions are leading to approval ratings that are consistent with people, for the most part, supporting them. And the one last one I want to throw on the table is when people talk about being fascist, this is what I think people need to consider, is we're right around 50%. There's no way that to claim that he's fascist and the American public are fascist, what you're saying is your fellow humans are stupid. You're the only one that's smart because you like him. This is not like 90% of the people approving of thumping on people's heads because they came here from another country and they're here legally. These are people saying, hey, you're doing what we voted for you for, and it's showing up in approval ratings in spite of the fact that I think, in my opinion, the left is throwing hissy fits, as they say. What they've done is they've said, we can't stand it. And the last thing for perspective, I'm going nuts here, is listen, the Serenity Prayer says, accept the things I cannot change. Well, you know what? Trump was elected and took office in January. He's here till the next election. Okay? So all your opinions aren't going to change any of that is my assertion, number one. And to boot, we're not even done with the first quarter in analogy to a football game. This is like being upset about something in a football game that's barely 7 minutes into the game, and you're throwing hissy fits because you don't like it. Grow up.
Yeah, Trump has scored all the touchdowns so far, and the other team falling behind. But back to Los Angeles, if you look at it, especially on television, this is what democracy looks like.
Yeah.
Mob rule, basically. That's what true democracy would look like. So thank goodness we have a system of laws, and we start with the Constitution, what the Founding Fathers gave us, including all the rights that you've talked about, and I've talked about, especially the gun rights and so forth. And those are being eroded. They have been seriously being eroded at the beginning of the 20th century with the progressive movement, so-called, which we'll get into as a full program one day soon. And that's something to worry about, too. But what does Trump have to worry about? It's bad enough, yes, don't have peace at home right now. Well, he's got 3 wars he's trying to juggle things. We've got the Ukrainians and the Russians aren't getting together. They're getting farther apart as each of them has scored some successes with their strikes. And we have the war basically going on in Gaza. And the Jews are being hurt, and they will be hurt more if the Iranians get their nuclear missiles, which they're close to. And all of these things have to come to a halt somehow. So it's right for the president to be devoting time to this if he can. And I'm not sure even he can solve all those wounds. Maybe Russia and Ukraine will have to just fight it out till there's nothing left. I don't know. But we can't have a situation where the nuclear bombs are going to go off, because that does hurt everybody. And it may bring Europe more into line with helping with the cause, as we all got together on the Second World War and after to try to build them up and us up. We need to build each other up and encourage each other to spend what we have to spend to defend ourselves and to be able to help our neighbors. Because with an alliance, we're a lot safer than we would be standing alone. We used to be able to stand alone because we had a country that had vast oceans on both sides and pretty friendly people on both borders. Not like what they're experiencing in Asia or in Europe. So we're lucky that way. Wish we could export that.
Yeah.
Wish we could export it. But it doesn't look likely.
There's another thing about Trump that that was brought up that I think is really important to consider as he moves rapidly, is people say that, if he's going to get anything done, this term is the best guarantee, because he might not have the House and Senate next time, and which makes him less effective as a president after this particular term of office. So the fact that he's moving transparently, whether you like what he's doing or not, he's doing everything he's doing transparently and out in the open.
Yeah, the access to him every day is remarkable, and he can speak off the cuff from his own memory. He doesn't need to have cue cards or people whispering things in his ear. He just comes right out with it. He's got it. He knows what he's doing. And he's got that big, beautiful bill pending. And just briefly to touch on that as a way to carry over to next week's program, let's think of the things that are happening and the things that aren't happening because of that. Social Security is not going to be untaxed, but they are increasing the standard deduction for it up to $4,000 for individuals over 65. So they're handling that a little bit. And of course, they've advertised highly that there'll be no tax on tips or overtime. That's a step in the right direction for the poorer sections of our country. And on the other hand, we're not going to raise taxes necessarily on the rich, so-called. Although when you think about it, if we're going to spend all the stuff that we're spending, we got to pay for it. That's a first principle. So we have to start reducing our debt, not building to it.
What do you mean we?
I mean we as a country. Medicaid requirements are going to have some restrictions. They're not onerous, though. They're not taking away Medicaid to anyone except people, on one hand, who are not citizens, and on the other hand, are able-bodied and can do some work. So what they have to do is, if they can work at least 8 hours per month, beginning in December, and re-enrollment will be there for them once a year for every 6 months enrolled. They'll have to provide additional income and residency verifications. In other words, like Great Britain, if you have a system that provides money to people and they're able to work, well, they shouldn't be getting as much as people who really need it. So this is a way of tempering that a bit.
Jeff, I need to interrupt here because what's really important in what you're going through there is what's not typically reported in the news media.
No,
it's all of which is available to anyone that would take the time to search it out. And what we're getting, what's being fed, spoon-fed to the public from the media, is what terrible things are being done to things like Medicaid is being taken away from people. Well, as you pointed out, it's unreasonable to expect an able-bodied single person to work a minimal amount of time to still get Medicaid.
Yeah, and there are things that can be done out there. You could be a crossing guard for a school, for example, and it doesn't have to be hard labor, although if you need to have pick and shovels, that's another thing you could do. I wanted to say a word about what can people do about things. I think the model to look at is a person named Charlie Kirk. You know who Charlie Kirk is?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I first really got introduced to him when I was listening to a radio podcast. He does one every Wednesday, and then it's repeated on various channels that I heard it on a Saturday. And he's at age 26 now and has his own podcast. Well, that's something. But he started more than 10 years ago as a high school student, getting national organizations together to do what he's doing now, promoting liberty, and also promoting the affiliation of government with strong religious beliefs, the kind of things that we had at the beginning of our nation that founded the basis for our Constitution. So here's one guy, not very old, not with a lot of credentials or anything, but he's out there fomenting for, keeping the good things that we have, keeping our freedom. Gotta like him for that.
Absolutely, and yeah, Charlie's been out there. I think it's interesting. There's a lot of people been around for a long time. A lot of these 10-year overnight successes, like people like him, that get things done out of their commitment. He goes to a lot of college campuses too.
Yes, and getting young people organized.
Yeah, and which is part of my mantra these days: their world, their battles to fight. I'm here if they want to ask me about anything, but a lot of young people don't have a lot of use for old people. Jeff, sorry about that.
Well, some old people don't have much use for younger ones, unless they're really young, like 2 years old, maybe.
Yeah, that too.
We like all that. But stay tuned to this radio station. From time to time, we'll be back. I'll be back on Friday with the Danger Zone, Friday at 4 o'clock. And we have other good programs throughout the week. We love our family of broadcasters here, and we want to support them as best we can, and the advertisers as well. So do what you can for us on that line, folks, and keep the good thought about keeping your liberty and what you can do to make it even better. Remember to honor those who paid the dearest price of all to keep this country going and make the world safe for democracy. And keep in mind that we are a nation of laws, a nation of freedom, and yes, it'll be a republic if we can keep it. So goodbye, folks. Have a good week. See you next week. Bye-bye.